Right. Well, welcome everybody. We're hosting this forum on behalf of Trans Family Support Services. This is a dad's group to get, fathers of trans kids together to talk about their experiences with their kids. We think it's very important to get the message out of acceptance. So we're all here to help deliver that message. What we'd like to do at the beginning is introduce ourselves a bit. So I'll start. My name is Alex. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'll let my other guys state theirs. I have a trans child that came out at the age of 12, basically in seventh grade, is now 16 years old. So we've been on this path about 14 years. Originally came out, female at birth, came out as trans male. More recently has kind of migrated back along the gender spectrum to non-binary trans male. But anyway, so Rob, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Rob, he, him, his. Um, I have, let's see, my child came out about a year ago at the age of 7 and let us know that they are non binary, male at birth. And they are now 8 years old. And we're just trying to navigate things and figure things out and support them as best as we can.
Great, thanks, Rob. Miko.
Hey, my name is Miko. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I have a trans male son, born female.
Mhm.
Came out in around this time, 2018, and very accepting. It wasn't no hesitation from my part and my wife's part. Like, we love you. You're the same person no matter what your new identity and your new name is. So we accepted our son with open arms.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great to hear, Mika, for sure. All right, so what we were going to do during this forum is just kind of have some topics that we can all address together. So we've got sort of a list of questions we'll run through. We have an hour for this streaming session. So I'll get started with it. And we might have one other dad join. So we'll get him in the mix if he does, have him introduce himself. But anyway, we'll go ahead and proceed with the group we've got right now. First thing I wanted to talk about is, what has it meant for you to be the father of a trans child? Either one of you guys want to?
Oh, I was thinking, that's a good question. I'm glad you didn't ask us these questions ahead of time so we'd be prepared. It's just raw, right off the front.
Yeah.
Okay, I at first I was like, okay, it's cool, because I want to be a good dad. Period.
Yeah.
The first couple of years, the transition was fine, and I noticed that within the last 2 years during the pandemic, it's been harder for some people who have not been in my circle or our circle. It's kind of hard to. I don't know. I have to get permission first from my son if I can share with people that we both know, but we haven't seen in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I, it's been a struggle with trying to be honest as possible. And they ask, "Oh, how's with my daughter's name?"
Yeah.
And I was like, a couple. I'll just be honest. I said, "Man, I don't have a daughter now. I have a son." And they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, really?" And they're on board. So I was like,
Yeah.
"I'm glad I got good friends."
Yeah. People surprise you a lot of times. It's always cheering when they do, for sure.
So it's been a challenge because I want to honor his privacy. And at
Uh-huh.
the same time, I want to just tell people, but that's not my job to do that. That's
Yeah.
I got to honor him. So
That's.
it's been a struggle on that part, but an honor
Mhm.
to still love him as much as I did when he was born.
That's what we're here to do, Miko. That's great. That's really great. Rob, what's kind of been your experiences being a dad of a trans kid?
I think um, we have, my wife and I, we have been very, very accepting of our child, and we've always known that they were a unique individual. Couldn't necessarily quite put our finger on what that looked like for them. But it really ultimately didn't matter so much to us. We're very open and accepting, and as long as our children are happy, that's really, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, I think, as a parent, is to bring up, human beings that feel loved and appreciated. I think the biggest challenge that we have run into is acceptance from the outside, and dealing with school districts. I think has been a bit of a challenge, but we're working.
Yeah, that's great, Rob. Juan, welcome.
Thank you, Alex.
Sure thing. So you're not too late. We did our introductions, and we were just kind of talking about the first subject. So the way we introduced ourselves, said our name, no last names, our, the child we're here for, about how long they came out to you.
Yeah, my kid, G, is a 17-year-old trans mask. Let me see. Started transitioning with testosterone hormone therapy in August of last year. So it's about a year since sort of the formal medical stuff began. In terms of coming out, well, you guys may know it's a process, and it wasn't necessarily like, boom, one day here it is. It was kind of like a gradual scaling evolution of both expression and understanding of identity, as well as sort of, preference for whom you're attracted to. And so it sort of went on a scale in terms of the articulation of coming out, from sort of being, well, I think I'm attracted to people of the same sex, and then I think I'm non-binary, and then it sort of moved on from non-binary to I think I'm transgender. And then after it went from that declaration, it was much more of, okay, now what do I want to do about it, and how do I want to handle a transition? So that process was, it took place over the course of maybe a year and a half of 2 years. It's sort of like each self-revelation event took place with our kid, and then took a little bit of time to come out to the family. So it wasn't like, boom, one day here I am, let's do this. It was definitely a process.
Yeah, good stuff. So the first topic that we were kind of addressing is, what's it kind of meant to you personally as being the father of a trans kid? How have you found that experience?
Oh, well, there's a loaded question, right? I guess one of the things that I have to say that helped me personally in that process was one of the very first discussions I had with trans family support services about this notion of whether or not this notion of your child being transgender is something that's been consistent over the course of their life. And I went back and I sort of reflected to the point in time when my kid was 3 years old and was already expressing themselves as a boy much more so than as a girl. And I sort of like went through the process, and that really helped me, because it allowed me to sort of see the consistency of my kid or who they were from the beginning. And so for me as the dad, dealing with, the sort of internal struggle of how do you support your kid and how do you deal with it internally, it really helped me to say, well, my kid's always been this way, from the moment that they could pretty much say yes or no. They were very clear in expressing a preference of how they wanted to identify gender-wise. And so that helped me a lot. The harder part, as I heard Rob just say when I was just checking in, was really the stuff that's going on outside of us that we can't control. And other people. That's really where the challenge is, I think, much more so than at least how I felt about it. Because to me, it's just my kid, man. I love him to death, and I want to help them live a meaningful and happy and self-fulfilled life. And when you recognize that if your kid has always been this way, then that leads you to be able to support them even more, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, from my own experience, my kid came and told me, similar to you, Juan, they came out, earlier as a lesbian, and, thought that was fine, had no issue with it. We'd always been very LGBTQ friendly in our family, thought that was all fine. Didn't know a lot about transgenderism at that point. I'd had a friend's kid that had transitioned several years before, and that child ended up committing suicide. So that was my experience with it. So when my kid came out at the dinner table one day and said, "Hey, I think I'm transgender. I think I'm a boy," I was frightened more than anything. I was just scared because it was just like, oh boy, here we go. And I just remember thinking, I've got to protect him at this point, and luckily, my wife called the Oceanside LGBTQ Center, and we got, Kathy Moeller was sitting in our, this was on like a Thursday evening. Kathy was sitting in our living room on Sunday to talk about, the transgenderism, and it was a real revelation, for both me and my wife. And so, subsequent to that, at the time I had this feeling I had that, okay, I'm now part of a club that I never really wanted to be a part of necessarily. It's something that you don't necessarily join. It's like your kid kind of joins for you, and now you're part of this community. But as I've, gone through it, over the last 4 years or so, it's an amazing community. It really is. The people that we've been able to meet, the other families that we've been able to meet, and, the people that we meet, as part of Trans Family Support Service, they're all supportive of their kids. And it's so great to find other families that are that way and showing and, kind of sharing that camaraderie and that, similar experience. And so to me, it's been a very enriching experience in ways that I never, when my kid first told me, as scared as I was, I never really saw this kind of blossoming out that, it would be as good as it is. So I think that's neat what we're all doing. One thing, we wanted to ask about for this dad's group is, are there any parts of your kids' transition that you found more difficult than others, or things that have been easier than others? Anybody want to jump in on that?
Well, I'll tell and share with you guys what was really, really the hardest part, which was, kind of like the post-pubescent period in which G's sort of gender and body dysphoria started peaking. And it got really weird with the pandemic. As you can imagine, right? They were a freshman in high school, second semester when the whole pandemic starts. And so then we go home, right? And you start dealing with class from school, with school from classes in your home and remote classes. And the public school system really had no real ability to make a tweak or an adjustment to effective learning. So it was just kind of like, hey, summer break started in March. And then we started looking for another school because we were dissatisfied. And ironically, we ended up choosing an all-girls Catholic school for their sophomore year. And in that environment, which was, academically enriched, but socially very, very constraining, our kid just went on a very, very deep, sort of dark, emotional slide. And I got really scared for their mental and emotional health, and things like the body and gender dysphoria getting to such a point where they really wanted to hurt themselves. And so that was a really, really hard, dark time. That sophomore year of high school which then led into the summer after that when we said, we got to get out of this school, man. This is not going to work. And that also coincided with August of last summer when we started the hormone therapy treatment. So since that really dark period and being active and supporting with the actual physical body transition, we've really turned a corner, and I just see so much more light in my child's spirit and emotional and mental health. So we really had a hard period for a while.
Yeah, understood. I think a lot of us had that. Yeah, Mika.
Okay. As Juan was talking, I was trying to figure out a difficult moment because there were lots of them, but the one that's most poignant. Since my son's 21, he'll be 22 in December. During last 2 years ago, when after George Floyd situation,
Yes.
there was a riot in La Mesa, and he was at work. And the point I'm going to make is, when my son was younger and female, he didn't believe the things I was saying was how to interact with the police, how to conduct yourself as a male. He's female at the time, and I told him, I could text him and said, make sure because there was a curfew coming up. There was all of a sudden a curfew. He got home around 11ish from work. I said, make sure you have from your employer, make sure you have some kind of letterhead paper saying that you're coming back from work. Don't argue with the police. Be calm as possible. And I don't need no paper.
Wow.
Yeah, I said, it's a riot.
Yeah.
And I can't talk because he's at work. So I texted him. He didn't want to do that. So he got stopped.
Oh, that's an amazing
He
story.
came back and he told me later on that he was fussing and arguing. I said, you don't do that kind of shit, man.
Right.
You don't do that. So he started understanding how to conduct himself as a black male, especially with the police and all that craziness going on.
Right.
So he started listening to me then.
Yeah.
I'm not just a wild person. I know what I'm talking about.
No, it's a unique perspective. Thanks for sharing it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Rob,
so that's one particular that I just wanted to share. That's
I
want to share.
That's really, that's right there.
Yeah.
I think we're still relatively early in this journey as a family. This has all happened in the COVID bubble, so a year is nothing in COVID time, and especially just not being able to really leave the bubble too much of our home has made this transition probably easier for my family. But I think, I see on the horizon some struggles with my family and their acceptance, and it's a little bit harder for some of the older generations, and I'm noticing that they're less willing to make an attempt and make an effort at believing what my child is telling them and seeing them for who they authentically are. So I think it is, we've kind of dabbled in that realm, kind of dipped our toe in the pond and recognized that it's not a safe space right now for our family, and just realizing and coming to grips with the fact that some tough choices might need to be made here in the future as some of our as COVID becomes less of an excuse.
You need to get out into society more, get with friends and family and things. Yeah, it can be really challenging. I mean, so, when I had, my kid has a sibling too, another female at birth daughter who's, cisgendered. And so I used to go, did the YMCA camping program with them for the Adventure Guides thing, for 9 years, long time, went all through it, was very invested in it, went to all the campouts and everything. And then my older child transitioned and, they have a follow-on group, which was, they had a girls group and a boys group. And so now, I had a transgender boy. And so I said, well, do you want to go camp with the boys group? My kid said, yeah. And so this is kind of the first time that we tried to pass, so to speak, and go out, just an organization. And I got in touch with the guy that led the group. And it was really gratifying to me because I talked to him about it. And he said, nope, let's just go pass. Just take your kid in. We'll just introduce them like everybody else. And nobody needs to know. And it was really neat to have that happen. But the difficult part of it is that it happened to be the weekend that we went to one of the camps that was up at the Kern River. The girls group was camping there too. And I saw a lot of my old buddies that I was in the other group with. And so I was kind of having to run interference, and get ahead of them because they thought we had come out to camp with them. And I had to tell them, no. And most of them knew about my kid at that point because they kind of transitioned right in the middle of it. And so a lot of them knew, about our family at that point. It was out in the open for a lot of them. But anyway, it was kind of a tricky situation to navigate. Anyway, but Rob, you bring up a good point. How's acceptance generally been of your trans kid in your families, in your kind of close friends group? If you had to, walk away from some friends who aren't accepting.
I think in general, our close family. So my wife's parents live 3 miles away, and my child is non-binary, but is I guess from a gender expression, wears a lot of dresses and has pierced ears and skirts, but they very firmly feel in between.
Mm-hmm.
And so my wife's family have done a fantastic job of making sure that my child feels loved and supported, and has gone out and bought clothes for them or bought them items, a backpack or things like that
Mm-hmm.
will make them feel very seen.
Yeah.
But there's also kind of been a bit of a struggle with the use of proper pronouns,
Mm-hmm.
which we're working on it. And I know we'll get there. And it's kind of the more that my in-laws are exposed to this, or the more that they realize the challenges that my child is going to go through in life, I think they recognize that it is a big deal, and it is important to use their proper pronouns and
Mm-hmm.
to respect them and see them for who they are. So
Yeah, absolutely. Juan, Miko, either of you had any experiences with acceptance of family and that sort of thing?
Well, I was going to, in some way, piggyback a little bit on what Miko had said previously about, having to deal with being an African American male in this society, and then to add on to that, right, the gender issue. A lot of this becomes cultural, and in our context, we're talking about Mexican Catholic families, some of whom are going to be older and very conservative. And so it's been a bit of a mixed bag.
Uh-huh.
We drove up to LA a couple of weeks ago, and G was really nervous right? Going to have dinner with some family members. You know, are they going to be accepting? How are they going to treat them?
Mm-hmm.
That went really well.
That's great.
Excuse me, but my mother-in-law is like, no, this is against God.
Yeah.
So that can be challenging. Excuse me, I'll let you guys go. I got to get some water.
No, go right ahead. Mika?
Okay, thank you, Juan and Rob. So far, thank you. The acceptance has been great, surprisingly great. I thought it was going to be hard
Yeah.
from family members because we knew in summer of 2018, and we didn't share anything with the family until around, because we know Thanksgiving was coming up. So we did it a little bit before Thanksgiving with my mother and other family members. They were accepting. I even have some family members with a younger child, and she was accepting too.
Yeah.
They're ready to start calling our son by a new name.
Mm-hmm.
I have family in out of state, and they were accepting too. And they said that we already know. I said, how did you know? Oh, it's on Facebook. Oh, Instagram. I said, oh, I didn't know it was posted there already. So, so like, cool.
Yeah.
But what I do want to share is the hardest part for me and my wife in the beginning was the pronoun change. So we had a jar, a penalty jar. So we dead named or used the wrong pronoun, had to pay, instead of $0.25. I was like, goodness. and what really helped us is we had a therapist that helped us understand the importance of it, because I was kind of casual about it, like like tomato, but it wasn't tomato.
Mm-hmm.
She said, do you like being called an ethnic slur, the N-word? I said, oh no, I don't like that. That's how I feel. I said, oh, I feel that bad. So I was like, I'm making sure I don't do that no more. I don't treat it casually, so I don't do that with him and anyone else. So that was the key. Yeah. So it's been going great, and that's been 4 years.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so when my kid came out, we met with Kathy, sat with it as a family for, I want to say, 3 or 4 weeks, say, just to kind of feel it out, get the new name, figured out, work on the pronouns, just kind of huddle as a family, not really let too many people know. But I think you're right, Miko, there was some event coming up. It might have been Thanksgiving or something. And so we figured, well, now it's time, we got to, let the rest of the family know. So we had our son go and make a video of themselves, basically introducing themselves as this, new identity. And we just emailed it to, our entire family. And then just kind of waited, but we're very fortunate in that it was just, affirmation after affirmation. Everybody came back, this is great, love to meet you, so happy that you realize this and that you realize your identity. I mean, just great messages of support, even from our parents. And I still don't know that my parents completely get it, but they're supportive around us, and that's good enough for me. We have had a few, and I can count them on one hand, a few friends that, haven't been supportive, or maybe initially were supportive, but then, changed political affiliations or something. And then all of a sudden, oh, now they're not, and things like that. And that's been disappointing when that happens, but we've really just kind of removed those people from our lives. At that point, it's kind of like, very protective of our kid, very protective of our family at this point. And so we just, need to keep our kid particularly around, supportive people, and people like, a second cousin of mine, Marine guy, does the reserves and everything. We started getting together with them, and my kid's transition happened kind of in the middle of, kind of annual meetups with this family. And so when we were going out to see them again, I got ahead of it, and I emailed them and I said, hey, by the way, my kid's transitioned at this point, they're no longer the kid you met 2 years ago. And he thought I was joking, at first. He thought, oh, shoot, you're pulling my leg or something. And I said, no, I'm kind of offended you thought that, but no, this isn't a joke. I'm serious about it, And then I was actually concerned to go out there. And so we went ahead and go, and I get out there, and he pulls me something inside. I had no idea. And he's like, after I got your message, he's like, I went and researched it and everything. And, he was a believer at that point. And it was like one of those times when somebody just really surprises you like that, and just how gratifying can be on behalf of your kid, because you know how important it is. I mean, I think that's what we're all kind of working towards, is to increase the acceptance of these kids and these families. I mean, people seem afraid of them, but really it's the kids that have to, that have to fear what society puts on them. And we need to, try and stem that and get more and more just people accepting gender diversity in this country. It'll be a better place. So, all right.
Well, I have to say, I love these experiences. I'll just be honest, though, still in the back of my head at times, I do get concerned, about what could happen out in the world that, we can't control. And, as a father, you always want to protect your kids, right? Because you're always sort of like, dad taking care of stuff. But when these kids get older and they grow up and they go off into the world on their own, you have to let go. It's one thing to let go of, my cisgender older son, and it's another thing to let go of my trans mask, younger son, who is now 17 and is 5'2". He's a little dude. My other kid's 6'2". Something happens to this one because someone doesn't like the fact that they're transgender. That can be really, really spooky and a bit, anxiety provoking for me. And I just, every time my kid goes out the door, I just, give an extra look and say, hey, take care of yourself, keep your eyes open. Maybe in some sense, Miko, when African-American dads let their boys out into the world, whether they're cis or they're trans, you're always thinking the same thing. And so I just want to be able to, tell other dads out there, that it's okay to be a little bit nervous and a little bit anxious, and just put in your kid's mind to just be thoughtful and aware of what's going on around them. And hopefully, they'll be able to spot any potential situations before something gets out of hand.
Oh, can I? Thank you, Mark, for saying that. Alex and Robert, excuse me, I got to say this. When our son was growing up, they took a lot of Taekwondo classes and so on. And even after the transition, they stopped. But we worked out together. He passed in big time with the surgery. He had surgery already because 21. At the time, when I'm going back to, it was 2 years ago. Working out, he still works out. Used the punching bag. So all the skills he learned earlier, he haven't forgotten them. And so he's passing big time, but he's really still nervous. Sometimes I'm nervous too. That someone's gonna say, "Hey, I remember you when you used to be a laugh or trying to start something." So so encouraging, keep your head up and not getting sucker punched, or allow someone to reel you in to get into an argument. Stay away from those type of things. Take the high road and just walk away. Yeah, I've been encouraged to do that. So I wanted to share that.
Yeah, thanks. So, did any of you have any?
Actually, Alex, you had mentioned the military and the Marine friend of yours, and at least in my experience, being former military and still working for the military now, I have found it to be a shockingly accepting group of people. So it's been a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
And there's actually a trans woman admiral in the Navy. So it's really cool to see that. It really is. And just at work the other day, there was a whole article on why pronouns are important and the proper use of pronouns. And it was really cool to see. It's cool to see. I thought this would be one of the least forward-leaning organizations on this front, and I see lots of other people actually putting their pronouns in their signature blocks at work, and it's very reassuring, and it just makes it's a very positive experience.
Yes. Oh, that's great. Did any of you have, like, when your kid first came out, were, both you and your partner equally supportive, or was there any difference there?
Oh, I'll go ahead. We were equally supportive. Before it came out to us, as trans came out to us as lesbian. So fine, just as long as you're alive and kicking and well and talking to us. Because a lot of teens, I've seen they don't like talking to their parents. So telling us, at least you told us. That's good. His friends already know, but
Right.
we didn't know yet. And so it's been good. We're on the same page. That's my point.
Excellent. Anybody else?
Well, no. In our house, it was a bumpy road. The coming out as gay, lesbian was fine. The coming out as non-binary was fine, but when the trans thing happened, my wife kind of fell into a little bit of a depression about it, and felt like a loss. And I'm not saying this to judge her, because I ended up struggling more with my wife's reaction than with my kid coming out to me. And my wife's reaction was a feeling of loss, that she had lost a daughter, someone that she had felt very close to in a feminine sense. And when she went and said that to our child, that really, really hurt him, because his perspective was, Mom, then you never saw me. If you really saw me, you would have realized that I was always a boy. So that there was kind of like this disconnect between Mom's understanding of who they thought the child was and the relationship to them, and the child's understanding of who they thought they were. The child was like, I always knew this is what I was, but I didn't know how to articulate it. Now that I'm articulated, I'm disappointed that you didn't see it. And it actually really, really created a very, very difficult, tense moment in time that was coinciding with this other thing that I was telling you about, with the all girls Catholic school thing going on at the same time. It was really, really a heavy period. And of course, like we said before, the whole COVID thing, the pandemic thing, was layered on top of it. So yeah, we had a really, really heavy, like 3 to 4, 5, 6 months stretch of time when all of this was happening at once. We've come through the other side. We've had a lot of open discussions about it, kind of respect each other's perspective and position, but it was not fluid. It was not smooth. I just,
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah, our path wasn't a straight line either, really. Similar to you, Juan, my wife at first was just, despondent over it. Meeting with Kathy, as soon as we did, she counseled us, to just talk about it between ourselves and not necessarily share our thoughts on, what all was going on with our kids. So I think that helped us out to not get into too damaging a cycle. But it was a big deal for my wife, and a lot of way along the lines of what you were saying, feeling that they'd lost this daughter that they'd invested a lot in, was really fond of the name and things, and now kind of have the sense that person was gone, and yeah, they loved this new person, but there was kind of a grieving process, I think. And it helped us through. We did go to the support groups. They had the parent support groups at that time down at the Oceanside LGBTQ Center. So we started, attending those in person, and just found that really helpful. Again, meeting other families, meeting other people that were kind of going through the same thing. And that just, the more you do that, kind of the more real it becomes to you. And pretty soon, it's just the way things are. It's just your kid. Sooner or later.
I want to say this, Juan, thank you, and Alex. When I said we were on the same page, we were on the same page together on a difficult journey. Like, let's say we're going to LA and our car breaks down, and then the steering wheel comes off, and then we're trying to fix the flat tire, and we don't have anything to fix the flat tire with. So, but we got help to navigate on the journey. We got a lot of help, P-Flag, Trans Family Services. gender fluid, so many different organizations.
Yeah.
So they helped us too, and
Mhm.
having a strong group of people that we knew that was supportive. So that helped our in transition. So I wanted to clarify that. It wasn't like, oh, it's so smooth and easy. It wasn't smooth and easy. I didn't want to make sure that I didn't sound like it was smooth and easy.
I mean, yeah, I know families, that split up over this. Parents that are, so non-accepting that they end up getting a divorce, with the supportive parent, taking on the kid and the other one just bailing. So it certainly can happen. So I consider it a benefit, Rob. I gather from what you said before that you and your wife are both very supportive, and it's such a better place to be. It makes it so much easier, when it's not, one parent is accepting and the other parent isn't, but that does occur.
I owe my wife a tremendous amount of gratitude. She's an elementary school teacher and is very accepting in her classroom and makes it a point to have inclusive literature in her classroom for I mean, everything you could think of. There is someone is being represented
Yeah.
in the books that she reads in her classroom. And she had asked our child to proofread a book for her, and this is before they came out, and our kid read the book and looked at my wife and said, "Why couldn't you tell me I could be both?" And it was just the light bulb went on, and my wife sat down and told me this, and it just like you were saying, Juan, as you look back through like old photos and videos and things, and you analyze, the progression, and just everything just landed into place, clicked into place, and it was just, oh, all right, well, we're doing this now. All right, cool.
Yeah. It's wild that way, for sure, for sure. And why do you guys, why what kind of made you guys want to participate today? Why do you want to, be visible publicly as the father of a trans child?
I thought about that. Good question. I want people to see that um, there's no stereotypical trans father. They don't follow a simple pattern. We come in all shapes and sizes, and I want them to see that that's what we represent. All shapes and all shapes and sizes, like America. All kinds of shapes and sizes, and religions, and point of view, whatever. But we're human beings like everybody else, and we're navigating and like everyone else, and it's okay for us to come out and ask for support and be supportive to each other. So that's why I want to be here.
Yeah, Mika. Yeah, that's okay. On.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, that's basically kind of been my wife and I's, kind of ethos is to be public, when we're not necessarily outing our kid, but just to touch as many people as we can to let them know, hey, you now know somebody that's got a trans kid, because I think that makes it real for people. Now it's not some, amorphous, scary thing. It's a person with a child that you might have known, a family that you love, that that you respect, that you um, have knowledge of. And I think it's just more and more helpful. So, to the extent we can, and it's gotten easier through the years. At the beginning of the time, we were with that group and things, and everybody was finding out. They wanted to talk to you about it. Everybody wanted to talk to you about it. It was like talking to too many people, It got to be a bit overwhelming. But now I'm much more of an advocate that way in trying to, get as many people as I can to know. I'm in a consulting engineering practice, but I've added my pronouns to my email now, just to try and normalize that, just to try and, again, get more and more people comfortable with the gender issues. So.
I was going to say, it's been an incredible learning process for me. And I think, Alex, you made reference to, the notion that, oh my God, there's all this, we sort of had to learn about what it meant to be not on an extreme binary level of a gender scale, right? But what I thought was really interesting is a little bit of what Miko said, right? Dads were all different shapes and sizes and colors, and just like kids and trans kids and people are all different shapes and size and colors. You know, if you just want to look at the world as say positive and negative, black and white, male and female, or whatever, you're missing the opportunity to see like the nuance. You know, like that nature is really beautiful and cunning and smart and creates sort of this scale of reality that we can fit into. To the extent we just say that it's polar opposites deprives us of the ability to have really true rich experiences. And my kid in this process has given me a really incredibly rich experience that I am benefiting from. And so, you know, if I can look at it that way, I'm thinking, wow, you know, our kids are gifts to us. And I just want to share that with people to say, you know, it's okay that things might sometimes get a little weird and a little scary and a little uncomfortable, but that's where, you know, growth and change happens. And so as dads, if we can provide that, you know, just like when your kid scraped their knee and you said, hey, it's going to be okay, let me put a Band-Aid on it. This is just like a bigger dad Band-Aid roll and say, look, it's going to be okay, but you teach me so that I can be there for you. You know, that's what I just want to tell people. We have so much that we can offer. We just got to be able to be open to learn and change and experience that, you know, that nuance, the space in between, you know.
Absolutely.
My kid's given me so much. I've just
That's really great. Yeah, you know.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, talking about our kids coming out. Yeah, that was my experience too. You know, looking back now, you can see a lot of the tea leaves, but at the time, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. But it was a similar experience to what you were saying, Juan, where they didn't know. They didn't know that path existed to them until they got into junior high school, went to their GSA. They started going through the LGBTQ letters, and they got to T, and they said trans, and like, yeah, a light bulb went off for my kid, and they were just saying, wow, I didn't even know that was, you know, something that you could be. And it was just so liberating. And it was amazing to see, you know, there's these moments of trans joy when your kid is kind of becoming to get that identity they want. And it's amazing to see. And it's been a great path that way. Go ahead, Rob.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, the reason I signed up for this and joined is because this is the first event I have actually participated in with the Trans Family SOS, and just, you know, wanted to bond and share stories and learn from other dads and just hear other people's experiences and broaden my horizons and see what I could be doing better as a parent of a gender diverse child.
Yeah, excellent.
You know, in some way, this to me is just like another extension of like, you know, soccer dad or scout dad or whatever, right? We all did these things when our kids were like little tots, right? And drive them to music class or drive them to whatever. Well, to me, this is just another aspect of my kid. And I think if there's anything that like really, really like somehow want to get out there is that I just want to make sure that we don't only identify our kids as being transgender, right? And if you spend up like all your time talking only about this, you sort of like deprive the opportunity of your kid, you know, saying, hey, you know what, I'm also a writer. I also like to do carpentry. I like to paint. I like to play music. You know, my kid likes to rock climb and do all this other stuff, right? So we spend a lot of time talking about transgender because it's really important to get the word out there into the world and be more accepting and whatnot. But we just also got to remember our kids are really well-rounded, and we got to celebrate those other aspects of them as well. Sometimes I sort of feel a little bit oppressed because I spend a lot of time talking and dealing with this. And sometimes I just want to talk about something else. I'll just be honest with you guys. Like,
Yeah.
hey, let's go talk about some TV show we're binge watching, or what new band you're into, or whatever. I still want to preserve the spaces to be dad in that sense with my kids, as well as dad in this sense with my kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so we got about 10 minutes left, guys, and kind of the last one on there is, what advice we might have for other fathers, of trans kids, things that we've learned that we can share the path.
What I would say is it's okay not to isolate yourself. It's okay to learn. It's okay to make mistakes, and talk to, like Juan was saying, our kids are like a gift to us. Talk to your kids some more. Let them. A lot of times they can educate us.
Oh yeah.
He'd educate me more. I'll start reading stuff he already knew already, but I'll start going to him telling, look what I found out. I was like an excited little kid talking to my dad when I was talking to him about things he already knew. But
Right.
I was excited. It's have fun with this, as in getting to know your child more. Slow down, reach out, and study some. But you don't have to know all the answers. Just be open-minded and have fun and spend time with people you love. Spend more time with them than everything else is going on in the world.
Right.
That's the advice I would give.
Yeah. Excellent.
I think I would say I like what Miko said there. Love, right? Love your kid. It's your kid.
Yeah.
In many ways, nothing has changed at all. And at the same time, love yourself too, and recognize that you're going to make mistakes, and don't beat yourself up over it. Give yourself as much grace as you're giving your child.
Yeah.
And everything will work out. Surround yourself with positive people, and I think that's a life lesson for any dad of any child.
Right.
Surround yourself and your family with happy people, positive people, and people that will show your child and your family love.
Yeah, that's great.
I totally agree with both you guys. Yeah, it's definitely lead with love. Have space open to learn, because your kid's going to teach you a lot. Mika, you're absolutely right. I was like, hey, check this out. And they're looking at me, Dad, that's old news, right? I knew that 2 years ago, right? And you're gonna go through a learning process that's going to be maybe challenging. And so give yourself, like Rob just said, some grace and some space to learn, to ask questions, to stumble along the way. And I think one of the things that I didn't do well was tolerate other people's stumbles along the way. And so I guess if I give you a lesson of my mistake, was know that not everyone is going to react, not everyone in your immediate family, like your other kids or your spouse or your sibling or whatever, they're not going to react the same way that you are. Don't hold it against them. I have to own and admit that I kind of came hard down on my wife when she didn't react the same way that I did. And I added to a very difficult moment with my own negative energy related to that. And so let other people have their stumbles as well, so long as you know that they're also leading with their heart, that they're also leading with love.
Right.
So, I just sort of add that into the mix as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good perspective to have, that everybody, is trying to do their best for their kid. And, there's a concept, that I learned in, trans parenting circles, but it's broadly applicable to all styles of parenting. It's the concept of love versus fear. And, there's a response where you're scared for your child so much by, society might not accept them. They might not look the same. Bathrooms are going to be a problem. It's going to be hard for them to be in public. I don't know what kind of job they're going to be able to get. that can really eat on you. And if that is your whole world, then you're very much invested in this not happening and this not being a reality. Your kid is not going through this because you're so wrapped up in all the bad stuff you think that could happen. And you really have to break through that and get to the love part of it, where you're showing your kid love, you're showing your kid acceptance, and allowing them to blossom then into that person and that identity they want to be. And acceptance is a hell of a drug. It really is. And it's such a powerful, powerful message. And the other thing I found out that I can give advice to dads is the path changes over time. My kid came out, 100% male, had top surgery, and then all of a sudden was like, now I can achieve my true identity. And it was somewhere more in the middle. And so it was very surprising to see, and a bit of a head turn. Again, my wife and I had to kind of come to terms with something new again, and all our kid, style of dress changed, all kinds of stuff changed, but still, kept taking the testosterone, still kept, was happy with the top surgery. But anyway, and then what their needs are at any given time can change. And so what I found is you're absolutely right, Miko, talking to your kids. I've had some of the best conversations with my child about, issues that they're having. And what it can really help you learn is to be a better ally, to be a better, to be more of a help to them. The more you know about them, the more you have those conversations, the more they're willing to share with you. And that's something that you can, take forward the entire time.
Alex, one of the light bulbs that went off for me was the first conversation we had with Kathy, right, at
Mhm.
Trans Family Support Services, in which she sort of explained a whole lot of this process as being like a matter of nature, a matter of science, a matter of physical health. And I thought, well, what if my kid had cancer? Like, wouldn't you do anything to get whatever treatment so that your kid would be better? And I took that sort of thought and I said, okay, if this is really truly then a medical issue, which I am convinced is true, again, like I said before, it's not positive and negative. There's sort of this line and this scale where my kid falls. And so why wouldn't I do anything and everything to help my kid be as healthy and as strong and have as a fulfilled life as they can, because you do it for medical issue. If you hit out leukemia, if, they got a concussion, if they broke an arm, you'd be all over that. Well, dads, out there, think of it this way too, as well, be all over this because you really want your kid to have the best fulfilling life. And this is a part of it,
Absolutely. All right, we got about 2 minutes left. Anybody got some closing thoughts they'd like to offer?
The closing thought is it's a wonderful feeling to be here, and you're not alone. Those who are watching, you're not alone. You got support. Just reach out. Yeah.
Absolutely. I
just wanted to thank all of you dads here for joining me, and this has been a great experience. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing.
I'm happy we all have each other's email addresses at this point.
Yeah, I really want to honor you guys. I just feel like such a kindred spirit. You guys have offered some great, reflective, thoughtful comment that resonates really well with me that I'm going to sit with tonight and just say, all right, this was good. I'm in a good space right now. Thank you all.
Absolutely. So again, this has been a production from Trans Family Support Services. One thing that's really neat that I find really fascinating about Trans Family Support Services, all their services are free to families with trans kids. And that's just amazing to me. And that was the way that it worked for my family. We never had to pay a dime to get Kathy over to our house, never had to pay a dime to go to a support meeting, any of it. It's all just there to support families with trans kids. And it's a fabulous resource. And we're so lucky to have it centered here in San Diego where we live. And so it being, Giving Month, you're going to see solicitations in your emails if you're affiliated with Trans Family Support Services at all, to donate to that organization. And they live and thrive on the donation. So, and I think we're over our time. I think we're not live anymore. I don't know.